Morning. All right, one step closer to the playoffs. Winfield had a really good weekend last weekend. They beat Shady, so they picked up the 12 base points. Plus, Shady's prior two wins gave them two more bonus points, so that's 14. Plus, they picked up bonus points from Lincoln County's win over St. Albans. That was really good. McGoffin County won over Pike County, so that was another bonus point for there. And Hoover and Princeton each gave them 1.2 points. So for a total of 17.4, Hoover beat Ripley and Princeton beat Woodrow Wilson. Nitro had a bye, and then Point Pleasant lost to Marietta, Ohio. All right, so still like 17.4 points for Winfield, which pushed their total up over 80, which gets them ever so bit closer to what I think is the magic number of like 105 or so that guarantees them in the playoffs. And just to let you know, there are another guaranteed 13 points to push them to about 93 points because whether you win or lose, you still get points. And so I kind of figured out what are the guarantees with like literally the worst case scenario, they would get to 93. So that gets them really, really close. All right. So I just wanted to go through that real quick because there's something else I want to kind of share with you today. The biggest thing is the question I'm sure that everybody has. All right, one, I'm saying that I think they're very, very close to making the playoffs. All right, so if they make the playoffs, where are they going to be seated, and then who are they going to play? So I think that those are the questions I think everybody wants to have. So I thought I would go through some not possible scenarios. I mean, in pseudo way, it's scenarios, but I'm going to give you possibilities in terms of what I consider the middle 8 teams. The 5 through 12 seeds, the 5 through 12 rankings, because that's where in that category is where not only would Winfield fall, but those are the ones of who their opponents could be as well. So I'm gonna just kind of share with you those teams and kind of show you where they could in terms of how their numbers could fall, and you can compare those to my final numbers, and then you can kind of make determinations for yourself about whether or not you pick them. You decide whether or not they're going to win certain games or not. So I'm gonna let you kind of play the pick 'em game. So we're gonna do that right now. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna really quickly review my picks from last week. I missed 2 games. I said South Charleston, Riverside. I missed that game. But again, that was kind of a push in terms of as far as Winfield's concerned. And the other game I missed was Kaiser and Allegheny, Maryland. Actually, I was kind of hedging on that one because, like I think I said last week, Allegheny, Maryland was a rival and the one that they kind of had beaten Kaiser more often than not of late. And they did again on Saturday. They played the game on Saturday afternoon. I was kind of following along with that one because I realized when I was running numbers that game actually was a much bigger game than maybe most people would thought of, because a win by Kaiser may have really kind of thrown a little bit of a, I don't know, things into like pushing Winfield down in the standings. That win could have pushed, could have put them ahead of Winfield and pushed Winfield down, and less likely for a lot of different things. So anyway, those are the ones I lost, but those are the only ones I lost, and my numbers were almost exactly. So like I said before, as the weeks go on, it's getting easier and easier to predict. Doesn't mean I think I'm going to be perfect. Like I said, I'll let you kind of make some predictions based on my numbers. But that's what we'll move on. All right, we're just going to jump right into it. There's no reason to show you the points as they now stand, because you could see those from the last, based on my predictions. But this is my, of course, my season ending projections. You can see that what I have is 21 teams. Now I don't have all 28, and as you're going to see my projections for even for this week, I'm only going to have 17. I mean, I will say it right here. I think right now we are looking at um, 17 teams for 16 spots. I mean, I just don't think. I think there's 11 teams that are basically out of it completely. But uh, but pay attention to Nitro, Spring Valley, Hoover, Greenbrier East, Capital, Winfield, Elkins, Hampshire. But that's the 5 through 12, because because those are where look, take a kind of look at the numbers. If you have to, pause them or whatever you're going to do at some point. Just kind of take a look at those because what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a few of these teams real quick here. And I'm going to show you, like I said, some possibilities. I'm not going to necessarily go run through scenarios like, if this team and this team lose and this team and this team win, type of thing. I'm just going to just share with you, okay, this is what the numbers would look like if certain teams lose and certain teams win. All right, so before I do that, real quick, I'll just go run through the bracketology thing. Um, the out of contention, I said I think that there's really 11 teams that are out. I don't have them all out yet, but but that's because I have these teams out. These three teams right now would need a lot of help, and then basically, um, that's my week ahead, but that's fine. We'll get to that in a second. But the contenders, this is it. So I put likely in Winfield, Elkins, Hampshire. I mean, they're getting really, really close. All three of those teams are getting really close to being locked in, and then the rest of the teams are controlling their own destiny right down here. And and again, there's 17 teams for 16 spots. All right, so let's go real quick. Like I said, let's go back, and all I'm going to do is just let you take a look. I'm not going to like spend a tremendous amount of time on each of these. I'm just kind of want to let you see, like I said, and there's the four teams at the top. And Hoover's one of them. So I'm just kind of going back to the first one I see here. And Hoover's a big game this weekend is with an undefeated Double A Frankfurt. If they lose that game, you can see down here at the bottom. The red number is the number I see them at the projected points. You see where it says base points, bonus points, strength of schedule points. Okay, so the red number is what you want to pay attention to in terms of their total points. The blues are their max and mins, in what I think they can get to. The maximum is basically is like in the event that some of the teams on their schedule would win a couple more games than I have them, slated for right now. The minimum is if they lose to Frankfurt. So they would drop to 132.6. Just kind of keep that in mind. Just a real quick, I won't do this for everybody. I'll just do it here. If it's in white, in terms of like the base points, those points are set, because that's what they are. The yellow, it's still, like if you notice Winfield, I have it 7 victories. Obviously that could change. Because they haven't yet won 7 games. They haven't played enough to do that. So, that number could change. That's what the yellow that could change. Now, granted, the independence thing has 2.4. That's all the strength of schedule points that they would get from the loss from independence. And that's not yet set, but it will be, I think, after this week. But all right, so let's go ahead and go now. Greenbrier East is my next one. Greenbrier East is probably the only team of the teams that are in the 5 through 8 range that I think could have a chance to even jump in the top four, although it would be very difficult. Because if you see here, I have them losing 2 of their last 3 games. Another getting another triple A, double A matchup where we're getting when the top teams in double A, they're playing Bluefield. I have them as taking a loss. I have them taking a loss the last game against Nitro, and then I have them beating a Double A team in James Monroe. If they were to lose all 3 of those, you can see they'd be down to 122.8. That's the big one as far as Winfield's concerned. But in order for Winfield to get a home playoff game, they need Greenbrier East to lose all 3 of those. So all right, so let's just move ahead. The next one is Nitro. I'll show you Nitro's numbers. I put their minimum 133.4 as a possible loss of one of their last 3 games. You see, their last 3 games are Winfield, Capital, Greenbrier East. 2 losses would drop them down to 121.4. I just don't think they're going to lose all 3. I mean, I suppose it's possible, but I just don't think they can lose 3 in a row by any means. Not the way they played. So I don't foresee that. And so that you see again, the red is where I project them at, and then their maximum is just not much more, and then their minimum, is based on one loss, not two, but you can see where the two losses could come into play. All right, so we're going to skip all the way over to Spring Valley. That's the fourth team in the top part. Again, you look at theirs. I have them winning out, so their maximum in their current the red number, where I haven't projected that, are basically the same. Again, just a couple more points, just like I did with like a Hoover. But uh, but if you see there again, they're I just could they lose a game because they only have two left, Woodrow or South Charleston. Just don't think that's likely. So that's where they are now. I'll go back now and we'll get the four teams that I said would possibly finish 9, 10, 11, 12. Hampshire is one. Now Hampshire also has two games left, but they have them winning them both. So there's not a lot of movement there. Elkins is another one. Again, not a lot of movement there. Let's see. All right, so I'm also going to jump in here with Chapmanville because the Chapmanville is not in that group of teams, but the reason why I want to throw them in right here is because they could cause some. I don't know. They could be a little bit of a, I guess, the fly in the ointment thing because of the possibility that they could if they were to win their next couple of games. I have obviously you can see that I have them losing to both Logan and Mingo Central. Um, so and then you can see at the bottom here I have them at 103.8, which barely gets them into the playoffs. And you can see where I put win over Logan's 118.8. But because I am presuming a loss to Mingo Central. All right, so again, that's just but if they were to win, that's the number though in the blue, 134.4. All right, so here now we need to find Capital, and then before we get to Winfield, and then here's Capital. Again, that's another one of those. Now, Capital and Winfield are extremely close in terms of points. And yeah, I have Capital losing the three in a row. They lost to Spring Valley. I have them losing to GW this weekend. I have them losing to Nitro, and then they play Riverside. So the the interesting thing here is unless Winfield gets a little bit of help, and we'll talk about Winfield here in a second, like with in terms of like because I have them separated basically by 1 point. It might be difficult to even to jump Capital now. Oh, I have Oak Hill, which is their seventh opponent, their week 7 opponent. I have them beating Woodrow. So if they were to lose to Woodrow, that 6 in the bonus points would drop to 5, which would drop their bonus points to 10, which would drop their overall total 125.8, which would be ever so slightly ahead of Winfield. And then if we get to Winfield, and then, of course, real quickly before I'll leave this page because I was going to click over to Winfield. You'll see if they were to lose, um, also lose to Riverside, the 3 loss means the final 3 games they have left. That would drop them to 113. All right, but before and then we'll get to Winfield, and if Winfield were to get like I was talking about the 1 point difference or even less than 1 point difference, that's where you're kind of rooting for. Can a Ripley beat Nicholas County, let's say, because they've got Parkersburg, Nicholas County, I think left. But and I don't know if they can beat Parkersburg, even though Parkersburg hasn't had a very good year. But maybe they can beat Nicholas County, or maybe I don't know. Magoffin County can win their last game. And that in that case, then that would move their bonus points up to 15, um, which would give them that extra point. Now, all right, so we'll you know, I can show you the extent. And then the 134.8 is the win over Nitro. All right. So and then obviously because I have them at 7-3, lost Nitro, win Riverside, win Point Pleasant. The guaranteed points on the bottom is
is the 93.4. That's where the worst case scenario, that's how many points they would end up with based on what they have right now, which I think maybe gets them in the playoffs based on that. Now, um, one more win, and yes, I would feel like absolutely guaranteed, but that's their guaranteed points right now. Um, but as far as like, okay, so let's talk about something about like a like home game scenario or whatever. Let's talk about home game scenario based on two situations. One, you beat Nitro. Well, you beat Nitro. I think the home game then you're still going to end up stuck behind Nitro, and you're going to get stuck behind Greenbrier East. So the best way to get past that is that have is to is for Greenbrier East to lose to all the last three games. Um, and now, say let's say they do finish 7-3. So how do you get a home game? But it becomes a little more complicated here. But yeah, Greenbrier East is going to have to lose. Capital would probably have to lose to Riverside, and then what you're going to have is a situation where um, well, I mean, Nitro plays at Greenbrier East that last game, and then basically the loser of that game would jump behind Winfield. But if those Capital were to lose and Greenbrier East were to lose, um, and it's a possibility. It's a possibility to sneak into that 8 spot and host a home game. And who would they play? I'm going to guess Elkins is who they would play. But you know, in if the only other way if they were to lose and then again the like I talked to you about the how close the points are between Capital and Winfield, it might be that if a Woodrow Wilson beats Oak Hill, and then if Winfield gets a little help from a Magoffin County or a Ripley or something like that, then Capital may not need to lose. But as far as getting a home game, if you lose to Rivers, I'm sorry, lose to Nitro. But all right, so that was that. All right, I didn't really want to go crazy over that. I mean, I hope that was somewhat not too difficult to follow. Let's just look real quickly at the week ahead predictions. This is my week ahead predictions. Um, I feel very good about, obviously I think, math is math. It's not that difficult. If these teams, if Princeton wins and Bridgeport wins and et cetera, I think this is what the points will look like in the end of next week. So, I mean, the math is not hard. That it is what it is. All right. So real quick then, we'll wrap this up here in 1 second, and we'll look at Winfield's opponents, what they have this week, and see if we can't get a little help from them. And that'll be about it for the week.
Okay, let's wrap things up with kind of talking about who the Winfield's opponents are playing this week. Lincoln County is at Mingo Central. I don't think we're gonna get one there. Parkersburg's at Ripley. That's why I talked about that one. Hoover is at Frankfurt. I briefly mentioned that game, because it was about the an undefeated AA Frankfurt team. As far as like whether or not that game means anything for Winfield in gaining points, it doesn't. Whether Hoover wins or loses, it doesn't mean anything. Maybe it means something if they lose based on, like I showed you, how many points that Hoover would have and the opportunity to maybe jump over Hoover then, if that's a possibility. And then, of course, that one less team that's in the top 8, and that kind of helps with the whole home game thing. I didn't really mention that, but I suppose that there's something to that maybe. I guess we'll explore that more if that happens to happen, if Frankfurt happens to beat Hoover. Oak Hill is at South Charleston. That would be good in the sense that it gives, it would give both Capital and Winfield that extra bonus point, but it also gives getting any more points for Winfield is obviously going to be beneficial. I mean, one thing I didn't talk about, I said that that Winfield and Capital were very close in points. You probably noticed that Winfield and Elkins are very close in points as well. So and that any extra points there. So who knows? I don't know. I mean, maybe it's possible that South Charleston can play a great game and beat Oak Hill. Lawrence County is at McGoffin. McGoffin's playing their last game. Hopefully they win their last game and give Winfield an extra point. Independence is at Princeton. It's very similar to the Hoover Frankfurt situation in that win or lose, it doesn't mean anything to Winfield. Truth be told, if Princeton loses, they have so many points now, and in a situation like they were sitting there with 1 and 2 with Bridgeport. I don't even think they're going to finish third. I think they'll still finish second, even if they happen to lose to Independence. Berkeley Springs is at Shady. I'm picking Shady in that one, and hopefully we get an extra bonus point there. I really think Shady should win that ball game. Riverside has a bye, and Point is at a very good Ohio team, Fort Fry. So I just don't see any Point giving Winfield anything extra there. So that's the wrap for the week. We will see how the math works out for next week and see where things go, and then maybe kind of further explain how things might go as far as who Winfield might play in the playoffs and who we're going to be rooting for to win or lose, and so that Winfield maybe has an opportunity to get a home game. But we'll see you next week.